So it's Children's Mental Health Week, and I thought it was a good time to be having a little chat about potty training and children's mental health and well-being. So it might not seem like a real obvious link, but they're really, really connected. So you've probably heard a lot about the gut-brain connection, and we know what goes on in our brain and how we're feeling can impact our gut health, and we know what's going on in our gut can actually impact our brain. And this is down to research. And the two are very connected. So you'll often maybe say things like, I have a gut feeling, or just something doesn't feel quite right. Or maybe you've got an interview or you're nervous about something and your tummy feels a bit sore. So we know the two are connected. And when children feel anxious, it can really impact the potty training process. And when the potty training process isn't going well, it can really impact children's self-esteem, feelings of self-worth, and feelings of anxiety. So just wanted to explore that a little bit further, because I think this is something that's been people are overlooking when there's arguments about who's responsible and why is the age going up. We're missing this. So let's imagine I'm a cave woman and I see a dangerous animal coming towards me. My body doesn't want to prioritize learning or reasoning. It just wants to prioritize my safety. So the part of the brain that becomes most active is the one that's there for survival. It's the one that wants me to fight or flight or flop or faint or fawn. Either way, it wants me to, do the best I can to survive. So if I see a tiger coming towards me, I won't either run or fight it or freeze, whatever. I don't want to be learning at that stage or reasoning at that stage or trying to work out what sort of tiger it is due to its stripes or how many teeth does he have. I just want to get out of there. So the brain's very clever. It wants to, at times that you feel stressed, prioritize feeling safe. So what's this got to do? So let's imagine there's a tiger and I'm running away. And you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I need to go to the toilet. If people just went to the toilet, whether they felt scared or not, you're actually more vulnerable. So the people who stopped in the early years, way back to go to the toilet are the ones who are most in danger. They're getting eaten first because they stopped to go. So when we are feeling anxious, it's not unusual that we can find it more difficult to go to the toilet because our body doesn't want us to release when it's feeling stressed. So when a child is finding the potty training process stressful, sometimes as adults we try to encourage them to go, but that goodwill encouragement of I'll give you a chocolate, I'll buy you a toy, we'll go to the farm if you get all the stars, can feel like pressure to the child, and so they're starting to feel more and more pressurized, and that release is more and more difficult. Similarly, there are people or in circumstances that need to go to the toilet a lot when they're nervous. So imagine in this instance, I see the tiger, but it's way in the distance. You might think to yourself, right, let's go to the toilet really quickly. So then I'm free to just run. So there are people when they're anxious are always going to the toilet. Like imagine it's a job interview or you're worried about something or you're waiting on news, you might find yourself going more regularly. So we know what's going on in our well-being can really impact our bowels and our bladder. And it's really worth remembering this for children. So as a potty training consultant, I don't see my job as thinking I want every child potty trained in 3 days by this age. I want it to be a process where the potty training process doesn't make children feel more stressed and in turn doesn't make adults feel more stressed. So what can we do? We want to have a potty training process that has got very little pressure. And how you can do that is lots of work before you actually take the nappy off. So be talking about poos and wees, something our society doesn't really like talking about. Show them the contents of the nappy. Normalise going to the toilet. Being playful about if they've done a poo or a wee, not negative. Trying to refrain from negative terminology. So there's some research that people who were told, one group were told to call poos poos, the other group were told to call them stinkies. The stinky group found it harder because it's the idea that pooing was something negative. Read books about poo, talk about it, and try not to put so much pressure. So a lot of this pressure is also coming from society. This idea you have to potty train children in 3 days. So people are taking 3 days off work and really trying to intensely do the process. And I think that can work for a lot of children. But for some children it doesn't. And those children, the adults start getting stressed, the children start getting stressed, and it really might not be the right go for them, and it might be thinking, okay, well, let's see what we can do in 3 days and spend a wee bit of time at home, but not panicking if they still have the odd accident. We need to normalise accidents. I never praise for dry pants, because it can make some children think that the idea is to hold, but we don't want that. We want them to be all about release. So if a child has an accident, I never ever shame them. Instead, I would say, oh, hello, Mr. Wee Wee, nice of you to come out. Next time we'll try for the toilet, so that we're always redirecting and they know, but we're never putting any shame. So that's really important. Sometimes children can get constipated. Sometimes they're constipated before they start, and sometimes they become constipated during the process. Either way, it can quickly manifest into worries and fears. So let's imagine that a child's constipated when they go to start potty training, and they maybe hold on a little bit longer because they're getting used to this process, and then they do a poo and it's sore, and their body thinks, oh, well, we don't want to do this again. So they get into this holding mentality till they find it very difficult to release. And then if they get more pressure, they start feeling, oh my goodness, I'm not getting this, and they start feeling like they're not a big boy or not a big girl. I've heard parents recently tell me of early years providers that are saying that children can't do certain things or in time out if they've got accidents. That's not helpful, and it's not helpful to their little sense of seeing. We don't want children to think their sense of self, their sense of worth is anything connected to whether or not they have an accident or not. So that's really important as well. Other children become constipated because they're feeling anxious. So they're maybe worried about the process, so they start holding. They maybe think poo's shameful, maybe have had a bad experience. So they start holding, and they find that release difficult, the same as the body trying to protect the person that was historically running away from the animal. So just thought it was worth mentioning. The other thing I would really be recommending is really working on children's gut health. So we know there's research not only about trying to safeguard against like depression and anxiety, which can be linked to the sorts of gut bacteria that we have in our bowel, but also there's research that's suggesting that experiences that we're having, for example, if somebody who's experienced trauma, that can actually impact the gut bacteria that's present in that individual. So it's a real two-way thing. So I think we need to be focusing less on who's responsible for ages of potty training and support and all of that, and more on how do we support children's mental health, well-being, feelings of worry, anxiety, and gut health. Those are the two things that we need to be focusing on if we're wanting to have less children going to school finding it difficult. And we need to have less shame on parents. We need to have less shame on children. We need to take a bit of the pressure away. The pressure is actually the problem. And that way we will have children who will be able to release their bowels, urinate, not hold, have good gut health, and the two things all work together.